The Lonely Boy and the Strange Encounter. The mountains were cold and silent at night, and the wind moved like a ghost through the sharp rocks. In this lonely place lived a human boy named Aaron. He had no parents, no family, and no home except a broken wooden hut near the edge of the cliffs. Aaron was an orphan, but he had learned to survive by hunting small animals, collecting herbs, and making fire from stones. Every day was a battle for food, and every night was a test of courage. Aaron often sat outside his hut and looked at the sky. The stars always gave him comfort, but also sadness. They reminded him that the world was bigger than his small life, that maybe someone somewhere cared about him, but he had never met them. Most days he never spoke a single word to anyone. His only friends were the mountains, the birds, and the silence. That night, however, the silence was broken. As the wind howled, Aaron heard something strange, a soft cry, not human, not animal. It came from the dark path that led deeper into the mountains. At first he thought it was a trick of his tired mind, but the sound came again, weak, frightened, and desperate. Aaron's heart began to beat faster. He grabbed the wooden spear he always kept near the fire and moved carefully toward the sound. His feet pressed against the frozen ground, his eyes searching the shadows. The cry grew clearer. It was not the growl of a beast. It was a voice. Finally he saw her. Under a tree, half hidden by branches, lay a girl, but she was not human. Her skin glowed faintly in the moonlight, pale silver with lines of blue across her arms. Her eyes were larger than his, shining like stars. She wore torn clothes made of strange fabric that shimmered even in the darkness. Aaron froze. He had heard stories of aliens, creatures from the skies, some dangerous, some kind, but he had never believed he would see one with his own eyes. Now standing in front of him was a young alien girl, weak and trembling. The girl tried to stand but fell back against the tree. Her voice shook as she whispered, "Please, help me." Aaron's spear tightened in his hands. Should he run? Should he fight? Or should he listen? The boy's lonely life had taught him one rule: trust no one. But looking at her, he saw fear, not threat. She was hurt. Her leg was bleeding and her breathing was heavy. He stepped closer, slowly, like a hunter approaching a wounded animal. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice quiet but sharp. The girl lifted her eyes to him. I cannot tell. They will find me. Please, human, don't leave me here." Aaron's heart felt heavy. He remembered the nights he had begged for help when he was small and alone, but no one came. Was he now to walk away from someone else in the same pain? The wind grew stronger, pushing cold air into his bones. He looked around the mountains. Somewhere out there he felt danger was waiting. If he left her, she might die before morning. If he helped her, maybe he would also face that danger. Aaron made his choice. "Stand up if you can. I will take you to my hut," he said firmly. The girl tried but stumbled. Aaron sighed and put her arm across his shoulder, guiding her slowly. She was lighter than he expected, fragile like a bird with broken wings. Each step they took echoed against the rocks. Aaron felt the night growing darker, as if the mountains themselves were watching them. When they reached his hut, he laid her on the rough bed of straw and covered her with his old blanket. The girl's eyes softened. "Why are you helping me?" she asked weakly. Aaron looked at the fire he had just lit. The flames cracked in the silence. "Because once I also needed help, and no one came." The girl's lips curved in a faint smile before her eyes closed. She fell into deep sleep, her chest rising slowly with each breath. Aaron sat beside the fire, staring at her face. Questions filled his mind. Who was she? Why was she in the mountains? And most of all, who was searching for her? Outside, the wind carried a low sound through the rocks. It was not the wind. It was something else. Heavy steps, far away but coming closer. Aaron's grip tightened around his spear again. The lonely boy was no longer alone, and the mountains had become more dangerous than ever. Crossing the mountains together. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the jagged mountains, painting the rocks with shades of red and gold. Aaron woke early, as he always did, but today was different. When he turned to the corner of his hut, he saw her, the alien girl, still sleeping under his old blanket. Her breathing was soft now, not heavy like last night, and her face looked calmer. For a moment, Aaron almost believed she was just another lost child like him, but then he noticed the blue glow on her skin, faint but clear in the morning light. She was no ordinary girl. She belonged to a world beyond his. Aaron stepped outside, letting the cold air bite his face. He looked at the path that twisted through the mountains. His mind was restless. He knew the sound he had heard last night. The heavy steps was real. Someone or something was out there searching. If they found her, they would find him too. When he returned inside, the girl was awake. Her silver eyes followed him. "You saved me," she whispered, her voice still weak but stronger than before. Aaron nodded without words. He wasn't used to speaking much. "My name is Lyra," she said softly. "I must cross the mountains. Beyond them, my people are waiting, but the raiders are hunting me. If they find me, I will not survive." Aaron frowned. "Raiders?" Lyra nodded slowly. "They are cruel. They took me from my home. I escaped, but they will not stop. They always track their prey." Her words made Aaron's chest tighten. 30 raiders, she had said. 30 against one orphan boy and a weak alien girl. It sounded impossible. Yet when Lyra looked at him with pleading eyes, something inside him refused to turn away. "I will help you cross the mountains," Aaron said finally. For the first time, Lyra's face lit with hope. They left the hut before noon. Aaron carried his spear and a small leather bag filled with dried berries and water. Lyra leaned on a stick he carved for her to support her injured leg. Step by step they began their climb. The path was harsh. Sharp stones cut into their feet, and the wind whipped across the ridges like knives. Aaron walked in front, guiding her carefully, warning her about loose rocks and sudden drops. Lyra struggled but followed, her breath uneven. How do you live here alone?" she asked between steps. Aaron shrugged. "I survive. That's all. You are strong," she said. "Stronger than you know." Her words made him pause. No one had ever said such things to him before. For years, people in the villages below the mountains had only called him orphan, poor, or useless. But Lyra spoke differently, as if she truly saw him. By late afternoon, they reached a narrow cliffside path. On one side was the wall of stone, and on the other a deadly drop into the valley. The wind roared louder here, almost pushing them off balance. "Stay close," Aaron warned. He held Lyra's hand firmly as they moved step by step. His grip was rough but steady. She looked down once and gasped. "Don't look," Aaron said sharply. "Look at me." "Walk forward," she obeyed, keeping her eyes locked on his. Slowly, they crossed to the other side. When they reached safe ground, Lyra laughed nervously, her voice shaking. "I thought I would fall." Aaron allowed a small smile. "Not while I'm here." As night approached, the mountains turned darker, colder. They found a shallow cave where they could rest. Aaron started a fire using dry sticks. The flames painted the stone walls with dancing light. Lyra sat beside him, holding the warmth in her hands. For the first time, she looked less like a stranger and more like a companion. "Why are you helping me, Aaron?" she asked gently. Aaron stared at the fire. "Because I know what it feels like to be alone. And I know what it feels like when no one helps. I don't want you to feel that." Lyra's eyes softened. "Then you are not just helping me. You are saving me." For a moment, silence filled the cave. The only sound was the crackling fire and the distant wind. Aaron felt a strange warmth in his chest, not from the fire, but from her words. But peace did not last. As they prepared to sleep, Aaron's sharp ears caught something, echoes of movement in the valley below. He crawled to the cave's edge and looked down. In the moonlight, shadows moved. Figures, many of them, walking with weapons that glowed faintly. His stomach turned cold. Lyra followed his gaze and her face paled. "The raiders," she whispered. Aaron counted quickly. At least a dozen visible already. And if she was right, more were coming. "They're too close," he muttered. "We can't stay here. Tomorrow we must move faster." Lyra looked at him with fear. "What if they catch us?" Aaron's jaw tightened. He gripped his spear harder. "Then they will regret chasing us." The cave filled with silence again, but this time it was not peaceful. Outside, the footsteps of enemies grew nearer. The mountains had turned into a battlefield, and the lonely boy had just chosen to fight against an army. Whispers of danger. The night was restless. Aaron sat near the cave's mouth with his spear across his knees, his eyes fixed on the shadows below. Lyra lay on the straw bed he had made for her, but even in sleep her body shifted, her face troubled. Every now and then she whispered words in a language Aaron could not understand, as if her dreams were filled with fear. The boy listened carefully to the valley. The sound of heavy steps came and went, sometimes close, sometimes far. It was not the sound of one or two men, it was the march of many. The raiders were searching. Aaron's chest tightened. He was used to danger, wild animals, storms, and hunger, but this was different. This was an enemy with weapons and numbers. He was only one boy with one spear, and a girl who could barely stand. Yet something deep inside him told him to stay strong. He had made a promise, and he would not break it. When dawn came, Lyra's eyes opened slowly. Her silver gaze met Aaron's, and she saw the tiredness in his face. "You didn't sleep," she said softly. Aaron shook his head. They were close. Too close. "We must move." Lyra sat up, wincing at the pain in her injured leg. "I told you." "The raiders never stop. They will follow me until the end." Aaron looked at her carefully. "Why you?" "Why are they chasing you?" Lyra's lips pressed tight as if she was afraid to speak. Finally, she whispered, "Because I escaped. And because of who I am." Aaron frowned. "Who are you?" Lyra lowered her head. "I cannot tell you, not yet. But if they take me back, it will mean death. Not only for me, but for many others." Her words sent a shiver down Aaron's spine. He wanted to ask more, but he saw the fear in her eyes. She was not lying. Whatever secret she carried, it was bigger than him, bigger than these mountains. They left the cave quickly, moving along a narrow trail that twisted between cliffs. The sun had risen, but its warmth did little against the cold wind. Aaron walked in front, his spear ready, scanning every corner. Lyra limped behind, using the stick he had carved for her. The mountains were alive with sound. Loose rocks fell down slopes, birds screamed as they flew across the sky, and sometimes faint echoes of voices drifted up from below. The raiders were spreading out, calling to each other in harsh tongues. Lyra stopped suddenly. Her silver eyes widened, staring at the rocks. Aaron turned quickly, his spear raised. "What is it?" he asked. She shook her head. "I heard them whispering. They're close." Aaron listened, and for a moment he thought it was only the wind. But then he caught it. Low guttural voices carried on the air. The sound of laughter, cruel and sharp. His stomach turned. They were not imagining things. The raiders were hunting them like wolves. By midday they reached a high ridge. From there they could see far across the valley. Aaron crouched low and pointed. "Look." Lyra followed his finger. Below them, moving like black ants, were the raiders. Dozens of them. Their armor glinting faintly, their weapons glowing blue. They searched in lines, spreading wider and wider, driving their prey toward the mountains. Lyra's face turned pale. "They're surrounding us." Aaron's jaw tightened. "Then we must be faster." He led her along the ridge, moving quickly, every sense sharp. But the raiders' voices echoed closer with every hour. Their whistles cut through the air, signals of hunters closing in. As the sun began to fall, the two found another cave, smaller than the last. Aaron pushed Lyra inside and covered the entrance with stones and branches. They sat in silence, hidden in the shadows. Lyra hugged her knees, trembling. "They won't stop, Aaron. They never stop. Do you understand? They will search every cave, every path, every shadow until they find me." Aaron looked at her with steady eyes. "Then we will keep moving until they can't." Lyra shook her head. "You don't know them. You don't know what they can do." "Then tell me," Aaron said firmly. "Tell me what they are." For a long moment she was silent. Then with a trembling voice she spoke. "They are raiders from the Red Moons. They take children from my people, force them into slavery. I was one of them. But I escaped before they could break me. If they find me, they will punish me and use me to find others." Aaron felt his blood run cold. This was no small fight. These raiders were not just hunting for revenge. They wanted control, power. And Lyra was the key. He gripped his spear tighter. "Then they will never have you. Not while I'm alive." Lyra's eyes filled with tears, shining like silver. "Why would you risk everything for me? You don't even know me." Aaron looked into the firelight. His voice was low but firm. "Because I know what it feels like to be powerless. And I won't let them do that to you." Outside, the night deepened. The voices of the raiders grew louder, echoing across the rocks like ghosts. Their whistles cut through the air, closer now. Aaron held his spear and listened. Every muscle tense, Lyra leaned against the wall, whispering, "They are coming." And she was right. The whispers of danger were no longer far away. They were at the cave's door. The silent night attack. The cave was dark. The fire burned low, and every shadow seemed alive. Aaron sat near the entrance, his spear resting against his shoulder. His eyes were sharp, his ears focused on every sound outside. Lyra lay on the ground behind him, her silver eyes half open, unable to sleep. Both of them felt it, the tension in the air, the silence before a storm. Hours passed slowly. The night was cold, but sweat gathered on Iran's forehead. Somewhere in the distance, a stone shifted, then a faint scrape like boots sliding against rock. He held his breath. It was no animal. It was them. Aaron turned his head. "Stay quiet," he whispered. Lyra nodded, clutching the stick he had carved for her as if it could protect her. Her heart pounded so loudly she feared the raiders would hear it. Suddenly, a shadow moved at the cave's mouth. Aaron's grip tightened around his spear. He stayed still, his eyes following the movement. Another shadow appeared, then another. Their outlines were tall, armored, with weapons glowing faintly blue in the dark. The raiders had found them. Aaron's chest tightened, but he did not panic. He remembered his parents' words long ago: fear is death, courage is survival. He raised a finger to his lips, signaling Lyra to stay hidden, then crouched low, ready. The first raider stepped inside the cave. His eyes glowed red in the darkness, scanning the room. Aaron waited, holding his breath. The man sniffed the air like a beast, then moved deeper. Behind him, 2 more raiders entered, their heavy boots echoing softly against the stone. Aaron knew he had only one chance. He leapt forward with the speed of a mountain cat, driving his spear into the chest of the first raider. The man grunted, stumbling backward, but Aaron did not wait. He pulled the spear free and swung it across the second raider's head. Knocking him against the wall, Lyra gasped, covering her mouth to stay silent. The third raider roared, his weapon flashing blue as he swung it at Aaron. Sparks flew as it scraped against the stone. Aaron ducked, rolling on the ground, then thrust his spear upward, striking the man's leg. The raider howled and fell to his knees, but the noise had broken the silence. From outside, more footsteps thundered. Voices shouted in their alien tongue. Aaron's stomach dropped. This was only the beginning. "Lyra, run!" he shouted, his voice echoing in the cave. Lyra tried to stand, but her injured leg slowed her. Aaron rushed to her side, grabbing her hand, pulling her toward a narrow crack in the back of the cave. He had seen it earlier, a passage leading to another path outside. The girl stumbled, but Aaron dragged her forward as the raiders stormed inside. Blue light filled the cave as their weapons glowed like fire. Arrows of energy struck the walls, blasting chunks of stone. Dust and smoke filled the air. Aaron shielded Lyra with his body, pushing her through the crack. "Go," she cried out. "Aaron, go!" he shouted again, turning back with his spear raised. 2 raiders charged him. He swung with all his strength, striking one across the chest, then ducking under the other's blade. But he was only one boy against many. Lyra crawled out of the crack, gasping for air, and turned to see Aaron fighting like a wild beast. His eyes were fierce, his movements quick, but the raiders pressed closer. Her chest ached. She could not leave him. Something inside her awakened. Her hands began to glow faint blue, energy crackling between her fingers. She had not wanted Aaron to know, but now there was no choice. She raised her palms toward the cave and released a blast of energy. A wave of light burst forward, striking the raiders with force, throwing them against the walls. The ground shook, stones collapsed, and the cave roared like thunder. Aaron froze for a moment, staring at her in shock. Lyra's body trembled, her face pale, but her power burned bright. "Come," she shouted, her voice shaking. Aaron ran toward her, pulling her hand as they stumbled out of the crack together. Behind them, the cave collapsed, burying the injured raiders under a storm of rock and dust. They emerged onto a narrow ledge high above the valley. The night sky opened above them, full of stars, but neither could enjoy its beauty. Aaron's chest heaved, his heart racing. Lyra leaned against him, her body weak from using her power. Aaron looked at her with wide eyes. You can do that?" Lyra nodded weakly. "It is my gift, and my curse. The raiders want me because of this. With my power, they can conquer whole worlds. That is why I ran. That is why I cannot be caught." Aaron's grip on her shoulder tightened. Now he understood. She was more than just a girl. She was a weapon to them. But to him, she was someone who needed protection. He looked down at the valley. More raiders were moving, their torches glowing like stars on the ground. The army was still coming. The battle was far from over, but Aaron did not feel fear. He felt fire in his chest. "They will not take you," he said firmly. "Not while I can fight." Lyra's tired eyes filled with tears, not of fear but of hope. For the first time, she believed she was not alone. Yet the mountains carried new sounds, the whistle of horns, the signal of hunters gathering. 30 raiders were near, and they now knew exactly where their prey had fled. The silent night attack was only the beginning. The arrival of the raiders, the mountains woke with the sound of horns. Deep and sharp, they echoed from ridge to ridge, bouncing across the rocks like thunder. Aaron and Lyra froze where they stood on the narrow ledge. The horns were not random, they were signals. The raiders had found their trail. From the valley below, torches flickered like angry stars. Dozens of figures moved together, their dark armor shining faintly under the moonlight. Aaron counted quickly. 10, 15, 20, and more were coming. Soon the number reached 30. 30 raiders marching like hunters closing in on prey. Aaron's heart pounded, but he did not show fear. His grip on the spear tightened. Beside him, Lyra's body shook, not only from weakness but also from memory. Her eyes were wide, her voice a trembling whisper. "They've come. All of them." Aaron glanced at her. She looked small and fragile, but he remembered the power she had unleashed in the cave. The blast of blue energy had saved them, but it had also cost her strength. He knew she couldn't do it again. Not yet. "They're not here for me," Aaron said, his voice steady. "They're here for you. That means if they want you, they must come through me first." Lyra stared at him in disbelief. "Aaron, there are 30 of them. You can't fight an army." Aaron's jaw tightened. "I don't need to fight them all at once. The mountains will fight with me." They moved quickly, climbing higher along the ledge. Aaron's mind worked fast. He had lived here his whole life, and he knew every rock, every hidden path, every place where the mountain could be friend or enemy. If he was clever, he could turn the land itself into a weapon. As they reached a cliff above the valley, Aaron pulled Lyra behind a large boulder. Together they watched as the raiders spread out below. Their leader stood at the front, taller than the rest, with glowing red eyes and a weapon twice the size of Aron's spear. His voice thundered in their strange tongue, ordering the soldiers to climb. Lyra's body tensed. "That's him. The one who captured me." Aaron studied the leader. His movements were sharp, his commands loud. He was no ordinary raider, he was a war chief. If he wanted Lyra this badly, then she was far more important than she had told Aaron. "Why you?" Aaron asked again, his eyes never leaving the enemy. Lyra lowered her head. "Because of what I am. Because of what I carry inside. If they control me, they control power that can destroy worlds." Aaron looked at her. He could see the shame in her eyes, but he didn't flinch. "Then we won't let them." The first wave of raiders began climbing the cliffs. Their armored hands dug into the rocks, their glowing weapons strapped across their backs. They moved fast like spiders, their eyes locked on the ledge where Aaron and Lyra had hidden. Aaron whispered, "Stay behind me." He picked up loose stones from the ground and set them near the edge. When the raiders reached halfway up the cliff, he shoved the stones over. The rocks tumbled down with speed, smashing into the climbers. Cries of pain echoed as several raiders fell, their bodies crashing into the valley floor. But more kept coming. Aaron's spear flashed as one raider reached the ledge. He stabbed forward, striking the man in the chest, sending him tumbling backward. Another climbed up, swinging a glowing blade. Aaron blocked with the wooden shaft, sparks flying as the blade sliced close to his face. He kicked the raider hard, sending him falling into the dark. Lyra gasped, watching him fight. He was only a boy, but in that moment he fought like a warrior. The horn sounded again. More raiders advanced, climbing from every side. Aaron pulled Lyra back from the ledge. "We must move higher." They climbed quickly, their breaths heavy. Aaron led her to a narrow path between two cliffs. Here the rocks were unstable, hanging loose from years of wind and rain. Aaron's mind sparked with an idea. "Stay here," he ordered Lyra. She shook her head. "No, Aaron, you can't," but he was already moving. He found a large stone resting at the edge of the path. With all his strength, he pushed. The rock groaned, then broke free, rolling down the slope. It gathered speed, crashing into the climbing raiders. The ground shook as bodies and weapons were swept away like leaves in a flood. Lyra's eyes widened. "You're using the mountain—" Aaron wiped the sweat from his brow. "This is my home. They don't belong here." But despite his traps, the raiders did not stop. They were too many, too determined. Their leader roared in anger, raising his weapon and fired a blast of blue energy at the cliffs. The explosion shook the ground, throwing Aaron and Lyra off balance. Aaron grabbed her before she fell, pulling her close. Dust filled the air, stones rained from above. The mountain itself seemed ready to collapse. When the smoke cleared, the war chief raised his hand, signaling his army. 30 raiders now stood ready, weapons glowing, eyes locked on their prey. Aaron felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. 30 against 2. Yet when he looked at Lyra, he saw not fear but trust. She believed in him. He lifted his spear, his voice calm but strong. "Let them come. Tonight, the mountain will teach them fear." Below, the raiders began their final climb, their voices echoing like thunder. The boy and the alien girl stood together on the ridge, small against the night but unbroken. The arrival of the raiders was no longer a threat. It was the beginning of war. The humans' hidden strength. The night sky glowed faintly with stars, but to Aaron the world felt darker than ever. 30 raiders climbed the cliffs below, their armor shining with blue light, their voices like thunder rolling through the mountains. Beside him, Lyra leaned weakly against the rocks, her breath heavy. She had power, but her strength was drained. Aaron knew the truth. This battle now rested on his shoulders. He tightened his grip on the spear. His heart pounded, but his mind was sharp. He had survived alone for years in these mountains, where storms, beasts, and hunger were enemies. The raiders were stronger, but Aaron had something they did not. He knew the land. He knew its secrets. And he would use them. Aaron turned to Lyra. "Stay behind me. No matter what happens, do not let them touch you." Lyra's silver eyes filled with fear. "Aaron, there are too many." "You will die," he shook his head. "Not tonight. Tonight they will learn what it means to fight a human." His words burned with fire. Lyra stared at him, and for the first time she saw not a lonely orphan boy, but a warrior. The first wave of raiders reached the ridge. Their leader roared, and a dozen soldiers climbed forward with glowing blades. Aaron's eyes scanned the ground. The rocks above were loose, heavy from the last storm. He moved quickly, jamming his spear into a crack and pushing with all his strength. The mountain answered. A wall of stones broke free, crashing down on the raiders. Cries of pain filled the air as bodies were crushed, armor shattered, and the cliff below became a graveyard of rubble. Aaron pulled his spear free and stood tall. His chest rose and fell with power. He had no army, no weapons of light, but he had the mountains, and his will. The survivors climbed faster, fueled by rage. One raider leapt onto the ledge, swinging his glowing sword. Aaron blocked with the wooden shaft, sparks flashing in the night. He twisted, shoved, and stabbed forward, driving the spear into the raider's chest. The man fell back, his weapon clattering into the darkness. Another raider came from the side. Aaron ducked low, sweeping the spear across his legs. The man stumbled, and Aaron struck his throat with the blunt end. The raider collapsed, gasping. Lyra's eyes widened as she watched. Aaron moved with speed, with precision. Every strike was smart, every step planned. He was not fighting with strength alone, he was fighting with survival, with knowledge carved into him from years of hardship. But the raiders kept coming. Aaron's body ached, his arms heavy, but his spirit did not break. He set traps as he fought, kicking loose rocks into their path, guiding them into narrow ledges where their numbers worked against them. "Come," he shouted, his voice echoing across the cliffs. "Come and face me!" The raiders roared, but each one who came near him fell. Aaron fought not like a boy, but like the mountains themselves, unyielding, merciless, eternal. From behind, Lyra whispered words of her own people, a prayer carried on trembling lips. She had thought humans were weak, fragile, simple, but watching Aaron, she saw something different. His body bled, his hands shook, yet his eyes burned with fire. The raiders noticed it too. Their leader snarled from below, raising his massive weapon. "Kill the human!" His voice thundered across the rocks. But when the soldiers climbed again, hesitation showed in their eyes. This boy had already taken down more than any of them expected. He fought with no fear. He fought as if the mountains themselves gave him strength. The battle grew fiercer. Aaron blocked strike after strike, his spear splintering under the power of glowing blades. Sweat and blood dripped from his skin, but still he stood. At last, one raider managed to slash across his arm, the burning pain forcing him back. Aaron gasped, his spear trembling. Lyra cried out, rushing forward. "Aaron!" But he raised his hand. "Stay back!" His voice was fierce. Summoning every ounce of strength, Aaron lunged forward, driving his spear into the raider's chest, even as pain shot through his body. The soldier fell and Aaron staggered, his body shaking but his spirit unbroken. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. She stepped closer, placing her glowing hands against his wound. Soft blue light spread into his skin. The bleeding slowed, the pain eased. Aaron looked at her in shock. You're healing me? Lyra nodded weakly. I cannot fight much, but I can give you this. You're not alone, Aaron, not anymore. Her words lit a fire in him greater than any flame. He stood taller, his eyes sharper, his heart stronger. The raiders below roared again, but now Aran was ready. He raised his spear high, his voice echoing across the cliffs. I am only one human, but tonight you will learn. We do not break, we do not bow, and we never run. The mountains carried his words far into the valley. The raiders paused, their steps slower, their hearts shaken. For the first time they felt fear, not of Lyra's power, but of the human who stood between them and their prize. Aaron was no longer just an orphan boy. He was strength. He was defiance. He was the hidden fire of humanity. And as the stars burned above, the war chief narrowed his eyes. He raised his massive weapon and pointed it toward the ledge. The battle was not over, it was only beginning. The final stand and the unexpected twist. The night stretched long and the mountains rumbled with the noise of war. Aaron stood on the cliff, his spear splintered but still in his grip. Beside him, Lyra leaned weakly against the rock, her silver eyes glowing faint in the dark. Below, the 30 raiders gathered, their horns echoing, their weapons raised high. At their center stood the war chief, taller and stronger than the rest, his eyes burning like fire. The air was heavy with tension. Aaron knew this was the final moment. He could not keep running. He could not keep hiding. The raiders would not stop until they had Lyra. And so the orphan boy made his choice. Tonight he would stand no matter the cost. The war chief raised his hand and the army roared. They climbed again, swarming the cliffs from every side. Aaron's heart pounded, but his mind was calm. He knew fear, but he also knew courage. He had survived storms, hunger, and loneliness. He had nothing to lose but everything to protect, Lyra, he said, his voice steady. No matter what happens, you must live. Do you understand? Tears filled her eyes. Don't say that. You will not die tonight. Aaron gave her a faint smile. I don't plan to. But if I fall, don't let them take you. Her lips trembled, but she nodded. Deep inside, she felt something stronger than fear, faith. The raiders reached the ridge. Aaron struck first. He pushed loose rocks down the slope, crushing several climbers. When another leapt onto the ledge, he spun his spear, striking the man's chest, then kicking him off the cliff. But they kept coming. One after another, armored figures climbed up, glowing weapons flashing blue. Aaron fought fiercely, his body moving faster than he thought possible. He dodged, blocked, and struck with the skill of a survivor. Every hit he made was precise, every move born of necessity. Lyra watched, her heart racing. She could see the truth now. Aaron was no ordinary boy. His spirit burned brighter than any power she had seen. The war chief finally climbed onto the ridge. His massive weapon glowed brighter than the rest, pulsing with deadly light. Aaron froze for a moment, his chest tightening. The man was a giant, armored in black steel, his face hidden by a mask of red glass. The war chief's voice thundered. Human boy, step aside. The girl belongs to us. Fight me and you will die. Aaron lifted his broken spear, his eyes burning with fire. She belongs to no one. If you want her, you'll have to go through me. The war chief roared, swinging his weapon with crushing force. Aaron blocked, but the impact shook his arms, nearly breaking his bones. He stumbled, but did not fall. Again and again the chief struck, each blow stronger than the last. Aaron dodged, ducked, and countered, but the enemy was overwhelming. At last, the war chief slammed his weapon down, shattering Aaron's spear in half. The boy fell to his knees, breathing hard, his body trembling. Lyra screamed, Aaron! The war chief raised his weapon for the final strike. But before he could bring it down, Lyra stepped forward. Her hands glowed with blue fire, brighter than ever before. Energy burst from her palms, striking the chief in the chest and throwing him backward. The raiders roared in shock, but Lyra's power did not stop. It grew, surrounding her body in waves of light. Her silver eyes blazed like stars. Aaron stared at her, stunned. Lyra! She looked at him, tears streaming down her face. I cannot hide anymore. I am not just a girl, Aaron. I am the daughter of the High Council of the Stars. The raiders want me because my blood carries the power to awaken ancient weapons. But they will never have me. Not while I live. Her voice shook the mountains. With a cry, Lyra unleashed her energy. Blue light exploded across the ridge, sweeping over the raiders. Their weapons shattered, their bodies thrown back into the valley. The ground trembled as the mountain itself seemed to roar with her. The war chief staggered to his feet, his armor cracked. He raised his weapon again, but Aaron, though weak, charged forward with the broken spear. With all his strength, he drove it into the chief's chest. The giant roared, his body collapsing as the light consumed him. The battle was over. Silence fell across the mountains. The raiders lay scattered, their horns silent, their leader defeated. Only Aaron and Lyra remained standing, breathing hard, their bodies covered in dust and blood. Lyra fell to her knees, trembling. Aaron rushed to her side, catching her before she collapsed. Her glow faded, but her eyes still shone with warmth. "You saved me," Aaron whispered. She shook her head weakly. "No, Aaron, you saved me. You saved us both." For the first time, Aaron felt something he had never known: belonging. He was no longer a lonely boy, no longer just an orphan in the mountains. He was a protector, a warrior, and now, part of a story greater than himself. Lyra looked into his eyes. "You stood against an army, Aaron, and you won. Do you know what that means?" Aaron smiled faintly. "It means humanity is stronger than they think." Above them, the stars burned brighter as if watching. The mountains stood silent, carrying the memory of the boy who faced 30 raiders and did not break. And though the battle was over, both knew this was only the beginning of something far greater.